Wake up, Habs fans. Montreal has beaten the Florida Panthers for the 7th straight game. And for the first time in a long time, the Canadiens are first in the Atlantic Division.
You are Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into another episode of Locked On Canadiens. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day, for subscribing wherever you get your podcast. Doing that supports us here on the show and ensures you don't miss an episode. Thank you for making us here at Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. We do really love saying that. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. My name is Ian Boisvert, also known as @MaybeIt'sGian. I am joined, as I usually always am, although I was out this week, I'm joined as the person holding down the fort for me while I was out, Laura Saba, also known as the Active Stick. Laura, it's 6-2B, the Florida Panthers. How are you doing today after this fine Montreal Canadiens win?
I'm blasting La Marseillaise like in the background.
We need to talk about Alex Texier. There's some mailbag questions on that, so stick around. We'll get into our Alex Texier feelings later on in the show. But look, we're gonna cap off that game against Florida, a game that it's second half of a back-to-back for the Canadiens, and it's a game that was really never in danger of the Canadiens losing. We're going to jump into our mailbag questions about what happens when the Canadiens finally get healthy, and it looks like it's on the horizon. They might need to start making some decisions sooner rather than later. Whether or not Brad Marchand was actually healthy. Are there any Alexanders the Canadiens should attempt to acquire now that they've gone 2 for 2 on their last 2 Alexanders? And of course, we'll get into Alex Texier, who has just been phenomenal this week for the Montreal Canadiens. But let's start with the game. Yes. Laura, that game, there's a lot going on, right? I mean, We're still watching Montembeault to see if he can snap back into his form.
He's at 3 out of 5, by the way.
What's that?
3 out of 5. Remember I said I need 5 games from him before I can trust him again? He's on game 3 out of 5.
Well, let's start with Montembeault then, because I think, we were talking beforehand and we kind of agreed that he was great except for the few instances where he very was not. And I think that's sort of the calling card for him at this point, right? It just seems like it's those hiccups, those mental mistakes, the brain farts that get him. What else are you seeing in Montembeault's game that's maybe making you feel better or worse as we're getting through the 5-game Laura Saba stint?
Test. Yes.
Yeah, test. There you go. How are you feeling about Sam's game?
I'm feeling positive, honestly, because I know that I can't expect him to be perfect, right? I know that I cannot expect him to be an incredible goalie all of a sudden overnight back to his last season form. So with giving him that bit of grace, for me, I would have been happy if just that one goal was the Sam Montembeault moment of the night. I would have been really happy if he had not assisted Sam Bennett on his goal. That's something that's entirely preventable, right? That's a look alive, know when you leave your net, know when to play the puck behind the boards, and really pay attention who you're passing to. That was egregious, right? So I would have loved if we didn't have that, and instead we're just talking about the goal that he maybe could have had, the other one. But at the same time, I'm seeing a lot from him, specifically making, I'm not going to say highlight reel saves, but making challenging saves. I'm seeing him successfully make challenging saves and withstand pressure. There was a lot of pressure from Florida in the second period, and he was able to withstand most of it really well, right? So I'm feeling my faith is still day to day, but it's not declining.
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. I agree with the whole he didn't make any highlight reel saves. You look back at the last 3 games, have they asked you? I think it was Montembeault, Fowler, Montembeault in the last 3 games.
Yes.
Have they asked those 2 goalies to make any highlight reel saves? I think the Canadiens' defensive play in front of those guys is making this easier for him, and potentially it's going to get even easier with Caden Gooley slotting back into the lineup as soon as Saturday.
Could be, yes.
It could be. We'll cover off on that in our second segment here. Alex Texier, a hat trick in this game. The funniest. I don't know. I love eating crow on this guy. I love it so much. Seventh, I believe that the third goal was his seventh of the year, all with the Canadiens. Obviously, he's been moved up to the top line. He's getting to play with more offensive talent. The funniest goal of the three was he tries to pass it over to Caulfield on a 2-on-1, and it gets returned to sender, and he just punches it right back into the net. I thought that was
So good.
incredibly funny.
I was like, why was he even passing there? I mean, I get it because it's Caulfield. Caulfield's the goal scorer. You pass it to Caulfield. But I thought he had it, and then it turned out he did. Like, even if he didn't think he had it, like, the universe made it so.
Yeah, I agree with, like, why would you pass it? Even though it is Caulfield, he's not on his dominant side. Like, he is on his dominant side, right? He's on the right side as a right shot.
Yeah.
One-timer going across the slot.
Yeah.
Like, if the roles were reversed and they were on different sides, yeah, zip that thing over to Caulfield at all costs. It's going in the net.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with you there. I think Texier, the reason I wanted to see him play with those guys is he plays the style that's going to, for the time being, work for that. I fear that, the Canadiens might get to a point where, there's nothing more permanent than a temporary solution that works.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that this does not deter them from finding a better option. Maybe it is Doc at some point when he comes back. Again, that could be soon. He skated as well. I know he was in a boot earlier this week off the ice, but he's been skating a few times as well. So I don't really know what to make of that. If I wanted to point out one thing in this game that I was like, I really wish they would get this sorted, the power play.
Oh my God.
I thought the Calgary game, the one full power play that they got, they were zipping the puck around. It looked really strong. And then this Florida game, it didn't really look like they had much of a chance. Florida was very aggressive on their penalty kill. The Canadiens could not find ways to get pucks through seams and through the middle of the ice. Is this power play just going to live and die based on what kind of penalty kill they play against?
Yes.
I feel like that's the case, and I feel like Marty has admitted as much when he would take Demidov off the top unit and put Bolduc on, especially that last game against Boston, where he said, we make those changes based on who we're playing against and how they kill penalties. Well, maybe there's some truth to that, because in this game, they really struggled against the Panthers penalty kill. The Panthers haven't been great this year, but their penalty kill is quite good.
Yes, I agree with you. And I think, when you're talking about, like, it changes based on who they're going to be playing. And I find it, like, remarkably interesting how it always looks successful against teams that you later look and it's like, oh, their penalty kill is actually crap, right? Right. That is a problem. Like, it's somebody that they can victimize. I think that, I always think about what in 2011, how the Boston Bruins won with an abjectly awful power play. I want to say throughout their entire Stanley Cup run, they scored like 2 power play goals or something.
I think it was one, and I think it was Thomas Caberlet who scored it, which is even funnier.
Yeah, I think about that era. Like, he played for Toronto for so long, and then he became Thomas Haberle, and then, anyways, we're not gonna
Thomas Haberle.
We're not gonna relitigate Thomas Caberlet at this moment in time, but. So I think about that, and it's like, do you actually need a power play to win a Stanley Cup? I mean, ideally you would have one, but you do need a power play to get a leg up on all the other teams that are, like, nipping at your heels in the standings in the regular season. Like, how do you set yourself apart? You need to score more goals, win more in regulation. How do you do that? You win more in regulation with more power play goals. So I think, like, the Canadiens do have a lot of overtime losses or wins. They do have a lot, but I just think that, like, that power play could have been the difference maker in so many games. And we're talking maybe, they're not like neck and neck with Detroit. They're 6 points ahead of them.
Yeah. I think that's what, to me, because I've been following the power play, especially the 5-on-4 power play, because they've scored, like, the Boston, they scored twice at 5-on-3. The last Florida game, they scored a 4-on-3 goal, but the 5-on-4 aspect of their power play has struggled to score over the last little while, which has made their road trip and their recent stretch even more impressive, that they've effectively done it without a functioning power play, and the power play looks great. It zips the puck around, but they've lacked that, again, killer instinct. Just one guy to put the thing into the net when they need it.
The last thing I want to say, because I know we do need to move on, is that what I'm feeling when I'm watching the power play, like, and this is from home, right? So obviously you got to take that with a grain of salt, is that I see them passing and I see them, like, I see the other guys, like the opponents, get in the shooting lanes. What I'm not seeing is them putting pressure and creating new shooting lanes. And that's so it's not just a matter of shooting towards the net. That would be ideal because at some point some of those are going to go in, but I find that they're not pressuring the penalty kill enough.
Yep. No, I agree. There's definitely some stuff to be worked out. Hopefully they'll find some practice days over the next little while. I think honestly, that's a big factor in all of this. We can't forget that they have had zero time to actually practice until they got back home just a little while ago. All right. We'll leave that there. When we come back, we turn to you, our listener. It's the mailbag. We've got some mailbag questions, and we'll start off with the big question. What happens when the Canadiens actually get healthy again? And we'll get into all that in just a minute here on Locked On Canadiens. There is nothing like being near the ice during hockey season. The speed, the hits, the atmosphere, it's unmatched. Watching at home is great, but being in the building is a completely different experience. The only thing that used to get in the way was actually getting tickets, long queues, endless screens, and price changes at checkout. That's why the Game Time app gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the hack for unlocking amazing NHL tickets and experiences in just a few taps. Like, I don't need to just tell you how you will experience it. I'll tell you how I've experienced Game Time in the past. I've talked about it on the show. I got to go to my first Habs game in Montreal this year because of tickets that I found on Game Time. I checked the app. I found some of the best seats that I could find, especially given the price. I used the view from my seat before buying, so I knew exactly where my wife and my buddy Laura were going to be able to sit and what we would see. The zone deals are clutch. You choose the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save even more. Seeing NHL tickets available for as low as $25 makes it easy to plan a game night, and knowing the tickets are backed by the Game Time guarantee gives you real peace of mind. Take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL. That's LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. All right. Welcome back. Thank you for making Locked On Canadiens your first listen of the day. And thank you for making us here at Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. If you haven't already, go check out our new Everydayer Club. You'll get access to an ad-free audio feed for Locked On Canadiens, compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and every major podcast app. You'll get an invite to the members-only Locked On Everydayer Discord server, which includes a group chat for listeners of this show. I'm Discord literate, so come hang out with me there. Go to lockedoncanadiens.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to learn more. All right, Laura, it's Friday. I know it doesn't feel like Friday to me because I haven't been here all week. Thank you again for holding down the fort.
You got to do 4 more episodes from now on.
Yeah, exactly. That's how this works. But we will head, as we always do on Fridays, to our mailbag. Let's get us kicked off here with longtime listener of the show, Jay Schwarzer, who asks, Hi Laura, hi Ian. With the news of some key players getting close to returning from injury, how do you see the Habs lineup being shuffled based on who is returning? Also, once some of those players are back, do you think Hugo would rather hang on to some of that depth in case of more injuries later in the season or in the playoffs? Or could you see some players being packaged in potential trades? And if so, who could be on the move involving players from the NHL and AHL teams? There's lots to digest there. I think we'll spend a good section of this segment there. What are your thoughts? Like, what happens when the Canadiens, especially up front, right? That's where the big log jam is. What are your thoughts on that?
I was going to say the easiest one is that Jaden Struble gets put on the chopping block. But if you want up front, okay, here's
defense is done. You nailed it. That's all we needed to say on defense.
Yeah.
Struble, ride the pine. You'll find another spot somewhere else.
Yes.
The forwards are where we need to focus our attention.
Yes. So the forwards, I feel like this is a shower thought I had today, was the Canadiens up front both have too many players and not enough players. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
There's too many guys.
They've had problems. They've lost essentially an entire second line, right? Just in Newhook, Laine, and Duck. They have had not a second line for a long time now. And what they've done is replace that with a lot of depth guys. So I do understand what you mean.
Yes. With Laine, I do feel that it is probably just a rest of this season situation. So I think Marty just plays him on the power play and then puts him somewhere he doesn't belong, and everyone gets frustrated and vents about it all, for the rest of the time. I think Alex Newhook, honestly, like what I find a little bit confusing is what they do with Alex Newhook, because now Kapanen or Kapanen, I keep calling him Kapanen. I don't
I
know why.
know.
Yes, it's so hard. But like Slavkovsky and Demidov are a duo, right? They're a duo. And in theory, anybody should be able to play with them. And you put Newhook there to increase the speed, right? That's the idea. And I know
Mhm.
Newhook's not coming back for a while, but still.
And I don't know
So
that I even do that because
right, exactly,
Kapanen
because
looks great.
exactly. So that's my problem, is that you can't
Great.
remove that center because that line is working so well. Kapanen has 2 goals in the last, was it 2 or 3 games?
It was
He
the first 3-point night of his career against the Florida Panthers.
Yeah, there you go. Like, it's incredible. So he's been doing really well. So then where do you put Newhook? Do you put him on the 3rd line? Do you try to make him work on the top line? Like, what do you do?
I kind of like a
Okay.
line of Newhook, Danault, and Gallagher. I
Ooh,
kind of like that.
it makes
It's a
that
little
more
small
dynamic.
on the wing, but we still don't know much about Anderson's injury, which is honestly a little alarming to me personally.
They're not
Thankfully
saying
they've
anything.
added a bunch of penalty killers. They're gonna get Evans back after the Olympics. Honestly, their penalty kills looked really good over the last few games. But like I kind
Danault's
of
been
like,
incredible on it. Danault and
yeah,
Mike Matheson. Danault's been incredible on it.
I still don't understand why people were so apprehensive to the idea of acquiring Phil Deneau. They all thought that he had the Monstars from Space Jam just take away his hockey powers, and that was never even close to being the most likely scenario with that player. That player was fed up playing for a team and an organization that didn't value him the way that he should have been valued, and he comes into Montreal and he's that dude again. Like, it's very clear that that's what happened there. But anyway, I think in the order of forwards, like, Beck is the easiest one to get sent down. Is Davidson still with the Canadiens?
No, he's
He
been in
can't be.
Laval for the last little while, yeah.
Then it's probably Blais is the next one to go.
Yeah.
Then if you had to, it's Veleno. Um, but like, we're running out of spots because
Yeah.
I am not touching Alex Texier at this point.
No.
Even Veleno, I've really liked. He's really developed into a player that has a role. He's figured out what he does on this team. I think that 4th line of all of those guys I just mentioned, Beck, Veleno, and Blais, have done a lot of what I took away from watching them is that they spend a lot of time squatting in the offensive zone. They don't come all that close to scoring, but they're just there and they're wearing the other team out and they're taking pressure off of their goalie. The goalie doesn't have to play for this little while, right? Like, they're just, I'm going to put the puck down
Yeah.
there. We're going to work it for 45 seconds and get off the ice.
Right. And the skill forwards also get a breather. Like, that's the thing. Like,
Yep.
find the biggest thing is that you're not seeing Nick Suzuki play too many minutes a night, because we're used to seeing him play 5 too many minutes a night, right? So, like, that's a big thing. I have really loved Owen Beck of late. I truly
Yeah.
have. Yeah.
As have I. I don't know why he got ejected from the game against Florida. Calling him for a charge was insane. I want to say he must have said something to the officials that got him
Yeah.
tossed
Yeah.
because, I mean, they were just trying to get everybody out of that, before too many bad things happened.
I agree with that. I just think that he probably was not able to keep his mouth shut. But in fairness to him, that was egregious. That was a phantom charging call. It was literally gravity. That's what happened.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be Arujaka because he leveled the guy. I think he leveled Stenlund first, and then Stenlund fell into Beck, who didn't try to get out of the way because, again, apologize to no one. Don't. There's no reason to help that player for Florida. All right, speaking of Florida, let's do a quick one here before we head to our 3rd segment. This one comes from Ellie, listener of the show. So my question is Marchand really injured, or is he really as much of a wuss as we all think he is? So I think the real answer to this is he did get hurt in their last game against Toronto. He did not finish the game.
Yes.
However, that's way too convenient and not fun to talk about. And I do find it funny that even in the sense of the code, the Panthers escape any kind of culpability in any of their actions.
Yeah.
I just said it a few minutes ago. Their mantra as a team is apologize to no one. It is engraved on their Stanley Cup rings. So when something bad happens to anybody on this team, you should not feel bad because they do not feel bad when it happens to anybody else.
Got
So
it.
I'll leave that there with do you have any Marchand thoughts before we move on?
I just think there was a target on his back, but he's also like, he's getting older, right? I also just am not looking forward to having to cheer for him a month from now. But he's just getting older. So like, even if he's like okay after that injury in Toronto. Like I still think that you sit out even if you hadn't brained Mike Matheson a few nights ago, a week or so ago.
I mean, it would have been nice to see him play in that game and get what he has coming to him because, the Canadiens and Panthers have history of that. Remember Mackenzie Weegar and Paul Byron?
Yeah.
That wasn't that long ago, right? Mm-hmm. Like this is something that happens
between these two teams.
Between anybody and anybody. Like you took a run at our guy, you did not get in trouble. You're going to get in trouble with us now. The Florida Panthers have done nothing but tell people in this league that that's how you need to play against them, and nobody seems to want to. And that's what gets, I think, frustrating. Like, the Panthers are always going to get the benefit of the doubt from officiating and from player safety. That's never going to change. But you can play like them too. It's the flood the zone concept. They're not going to call you for everything, Arbor Xhekaj. And as hard as that is to hear, like you start running a bunch of guys over, they're going to start jumping in and taking penalties of their own. So the Florida Panthers have told you how to beat them. The Canadiens are doing it, and they're doing it really well.
Yeah, I really loved their game tonight. Like it was so satisfying. Tonight's game was just really satisfying.
I love beating that team. They're like, I think right now it's up there with like Ottawa and Boston and Toronto for teams I love beating. Anyway, let's leave that there. That's enough Florida Panthers talk on this episode. When we come back, we'll talk about Texier some more and maybe the Canadiens grabbing another Alexander or Alexi in the future. And we'll get to that in just a minute here on Locked On Canadiens. The wild card round is here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Because right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts that you can apply to the bets you like most. Open your profit boost pack first thing on game day and see what boosts you want to apply. The boosts let you lean into your game day instincts, whether you're backing the momentum, defense, quarterback play, or coaching, any of those things. The boosts give you more juice on the bets you already like instead of forcing you to bet something new. Every play feels bigger, and the boosts make your bets feel like that too. You make your picks, then you apply your profit boosts to go after even bigger payouts while the playoffs get rolling. So visit FanDuel, an official sports book partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. All right, welcome back. Let's jump back into our mailbag here. Let's hit one here from our friend Nathaniel Hers, who asks, "Where in the lineup do you want to see Hage this season?" It's an interesting thought. You don't want to see him play for the Canadiens at all this season. Explain.
No.
Why is that?
Because there's already too many freaking forwards, and we don't know where to put any of them.
Yes, I agree with you. I think it's less that I don't want to see Michael Hage. It's just that in trying to find him a spot, I don't know where you put Michael Hage.
Right, exactly.
Right?
That's exactly it. And again, I'm so excited about this guy. I'm so excited about his development. I'm so excited about how good he was in the World Juniors, and also I cannot believe that he was not the Team Canada player. Like I think they had him like third or whatever.
Oh, I can 1,000%. He doesn't play in the CHL. He went to college, and it made them all very upset. And they're just a bunch of babies who run that organization.
Is the CHL the new World Championships? Is that what it is?
The CHL is new worlds. Absolutely, Laura. It totally is. These guys are all beef brain. Like they don't care. They're not to not have him as any of your top three. That is not an indictment of how they see hockey. It's how they see people. Yes. Like they're just morons. I'm not worried about it at all.
It's not that. It's also like the display that Team Canada had after losing to Czechia. Like I feel like the entire 100%. Organization
they named Porter Martone their captain. Like that's all we need to know about Hockey Canada that built that team. They're a bunch of losers, and congrats on your bronze. You should have. The U.S. didn't even make it to a medal round. You should have won a gold. Complete disappointment. Nobody involved in the selection of that team should have a job anymore. Okay, I'm done ranting about it.
Yes. Anyways, Michael Hage. It's not that I don't want to see him. It's that there's right now there's no room for him unless they lose some players at the deadline.
Agreed. I think that's right. Hey, let's get into some questions here around Texier and other Alexanders or Alexis. Let's start with Alexandra Gowing, who asks, or Alexander Christian, who asks, last year we made the great trade for Alexander Carrier that, at least on vibes, felt like it helped right the ship. This year we signed Alexandre Texier when things were starting to feel a little suspect, and he has overperformed our expectations. However, there are no other Alexanders in the NHL to acquire next year to help us out. We even have Alexander Burrows doing player development, so we can't hire him either. Do you think the Canadiens will be able to get through their first rough patch next season without acquiring a new Alexander? I do want to jump quickly to another question from Randy Hansen because I think it's connected. A heartwarming story this year has been watching Alex Texier blossom as a player. He said he had said his family didn't speak English well and is happier being in Montreal. Environment is important. Can you think of another player that could also blossom like this if they were traded to Montreal? Alexis Lafreniere comes to mind. I think that that's a perfect. We get questions from our listeners that they're answering each other. I think that that's beautiful. I really do think that like Lafreniere, first overall pick, it worked for. It was seeming like it was going to work for him with the Rangers for like a moment, and they signed him to a big contract, and then immediately hasn't worked because that team is not very good.
And it's very dysfunctional. Like, we cannot discount the importance of a functional, healthy dynamic on a team.
Absolutely.
Yes.
To Alexander Christian's question, the Alexander I would like to see them acquire is Alexander Ovechkin, but I know that's not the question you're asking. It's an RE, not an ER, but that's where my brain goes.
No, I get it.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's jump to our next question here. Let's go to Robert Rice. Looking down the schedule for the second half of the season, do you have any games we've already written off as, well, that's a loss? Or do you have any games circled with I would rather lose 2 other games than lose this one? I personally expect the Habs to drop both games to Minnesota when they face them. Simultaneously, I have a burning need for the Canadiens to utterly destroy Anaheim for hiring Quenneville and also give a drubbing to Vegas for the Carter Hart signing.
Yeah.
I agree with everything at the bottom. What I don't agree with is the concept of the scheduled loss. Because second half of back-to-backs used to be scheduled losses, and the Canadiens are actually quite good on the second half of back-to-backs this year.
They've also rewritten a lot of narratives, right? Like, they won in Carolina for the first time and all of that. So I do think the Minnesota narrative, I personally, this isn't a scheduled loss, but I'm very nervous about the Colorado Avalanche coming to town.
That's I don't even know so much as a scheduled loss as it's just they are a buzzsaw.
Yeah.
Like, I think they've lost 4 games in regulation this year.
Yes.
I think the next closest team is in double digits. Like, it's just not fair what they're doing. I don't think
the next closest team is Dallas, and Canadiens needed overtime to beat them.
Yeah, man, I wasn't on the show to talk about that game. The game was so good. I watched it on a train and was just like losing my mind watching it on a train.
Yeah.
I think I don't know that there's a scheduled loss, but I agree. Like, the Minnesota games are always just like, who cares? Like, if I don't, to the point of like, I would rather lose 2 of these games. I'd rather lose 2 against Minnesota than any against like Detroit. The Detroit game on Saturday, for example, is one of the biggest games of the year so far. That one I don't want to lose. I'll trade both those Minnesota games for that one Detroit game, please.
I think so. Yeah, I agree. Do we have this question, and I don't know if now we've turned it into an accidental running bit, is that we always get this question from Boondoggle that we forgot to answer like a couple of months ago or something.
Sure.
And then he always like re-ups the question and we always forget it or we don't get to it.
Sure.
Can we do that one?
Yeah, let's do it.
Or do we just leave it as a bit?
I think we've left it as a bit long enough. I think admitting it's a bit is half the problem.
Yeah,
so let's do that one.
I blew up our own spot there. All right. Dougie Armstrong said there are no untouchables on the Blues. Is Robert Thomas that right fit that the Habs would overpay to get? If so, will it take more than Struble, Raw, and a first, despite what the Reddit experts say? Who do you think fans need to brace themselves for being moved out? I would think it would take Gooley, Doc, and a first, or maybe giving up a Reinbacher and or Hage in the deal. Do we want Robert Thomas?
Yeah, I mean, he's a great hockey player. I just like...
Are we willing to give up all the things we just said?
Well, here's the thing, right? Like, if you're doing all of that, why are you holding on to Kapanen? Right?
Ooh.
And I say that to say I'm starting to get tired of the Canadiens need a 2C narrative. I don't think they do. I think Kapanen has been like, I'm that guy. I'll be that guy.
Yeah.
They don't need a 1C to play 2C for them. That's what Robert Thomas is. Robert Thomas is a first line center. They have one of those. It's Nick Suzuki. I keep coming back to if if he is a slightly more offensively potent Thomas Plekanec, this team can win. And this team will win games, and a lot of games, and they'll win big games. I really struggle with this whole, like, we need to dump a bunch of assets for that sort of thing.
Okay, so but here's the thing though, like I feel like I don't blame the market for that, because for a year and a half, that is all we talked about.
Yep.
Right? All we
And the
talked about. So
conditions
like,
have changed.
yeah. And like letting go of that is the hard part, because the Canadiens didn't physically get a player from a different team that was suited for that spot and meets our expectations for it. So like it's always an open question in the back of our mind. And I think that you're absolutely right, is that they are at a point now where if a guy like Robert Thomas becomes available to the Habs, then you have those questions. You have those conversations, but you don't need to go looking anymore. They've done all this assessment. Like they did all their homework on all the centers in the league. And like, meanwhile, they didn't have enough information on Kapanen, which they now do. So it's not a dire need. And it's the same thing with like replacing Texier, right? They don't need to go out and find someone right now because it's working, right? And they can win games. It's clear that they can win games with it. The time that you have those conversations is when somebody becomes available. You hear the rumors, you call the GM, you see what it would take. Like that's where I'm at with this.
When we had all those conversations about the second line center, what was the first line? The first line was Suzuki, Caulfield, and Slafkovsky. That is not the first line anymore. Exactly. The second line, the driver on that line, they're on the wing. Right? It's Slafkovsky. Some moments it's Demidov, depending on what's happening, but Slafkovsky is driving the offense of that line.
Yeah. And eventually it'll be Demidov too, like either in equal measure or you can put them on different lines. Like,
I would much rather see the Canadiens use some of their capital here, draft picks, prospects, to get a first line winger, a legit like point per game winger that you can stick next to those two guys who can play the way that you want them to. And that's not going to cost you as much right now as a center, even a second line one, because of just the nature of what centers are expected to do. Right?
Yes.
I think that that's where this is headed. And I don't know if you're finding that player in season. I know the Canadiens have been drawn to Blake Coleman out of Calgary. I want to talk about that a little bit more next week, because I think that's an interesting conversation. But I think, that's a temporary solution. That's this year and next, right? I think that's all he has left. Marchessault, they've been drawn to him as well, apparently, although I don't know how much of that is just insiders throwing things out there. But that's a guy with a little bit more term and, maybe limited upside towards the end of that term. So
anytime it's somebody with a French last name or a Quebecer, I feel like it's insiders throwing stuff at the wall. Well, it's funny that it's worked out for the Montreal Canadiens.
That's what I mean. The summer was started with Bolduc, right?
Yeah.
And then it was Texier, French. Yeah. And even though he's not from Quebec, French dude who likes
last year was Carrier.
Yeah. Veleno. It's the Canadiens have quietly done a good job of adding those guys and not making it like a key tenet of what they want to do, like we've seen other front offices for this team do.
I think they've done a really good job. Are we almost out of questions? Because I know there's
I know you had one more that you wanted to do, so let's end the show on that one.
So this one, we have to do it because it doesn't come from our good friend Mark C. It comes from our good friend Mark C's 14-year-old daughter. So we absolutely have to address it. But I also think it's a really interesting question, and I do want to address it in like as succinctly as I can, if that's a word. It says, Laura, you often say which Habs players are handsome and attractive, and I usually agree. If Ian made the same comments about which Victoire players were pretty or hot, wouldn't he get roasted for it? For what it's worth, Slav is so handsome, he looks like a Disney prince, LOL. So I do want to address this because I love that this question was asked by an earnest 14-year-old girl and not some dude who's getting mad because I said that he can't objectify a woman, right?
Sure.
To be clear, in this scenario, it's not Ian is not that guy, right? But so like this is something that like I do want to clearly state though, like while Josh Anderson is an extremely handsome man, when we talk about him being handsome, like we kind of do it for the memes, right? Like it's a bit like the referees target him because he's handsome, right? Or that was a handsome goal, things like that. So there's something called power dynamics. And the reason that we don't sexualize female or women athletes is because generally in society, their looks and their attractiveness have been considered more valuable than their athletic ability, their professional ability, their ability to act, sing, dance, whatever, right? So because of the way society is, is, we want to make sure that we're punching up, not punching down. So that is why it's okay to consider them attractive, but we also have to ensure that we're doing so while we're valuing them as players, as human beings, as actors, as whatever. So that's why it's not okay for Ian to like wax poetic about a Victoire player like I would about Josh Anderson. And I know we're talking about Josh Anderson because that's the one I always talk about.
Like we do about Josh Anderson.
Yes.
I'm also saying the dude's handsome all the time.
There you go. So it's okay to do it for the memes, and it's okay to punch up in our society. It's not okay to punch down. So when there is a time where the power imbalance has been reversed, maybe, then it would be okay. That's really like the simplest way that I can put it. But I really like that you asked this question. I'm sorry that I got really serious about the answer. But I just really love it because generally when someone is saying, why can't a man objectify whatever attractive female athlete, they're doing it because I said that I want them to value the athlete for their true value and not just their aesthetic looks and their ability to conform to what our society deems beautiful.
Wow. I didn't know the show could get that deep. That was good. I appreciated that.
Anyways, but yes, thank you for your question. And I do think that you know, I'm not looking at Slavkovsky that way. He's too young, but I do think he does have Disney prince qualities. Like if he were to dress up as a Disney prince, which he might have for Halloween, I think that it would work really well.
Well, now he's got the scar on his face too. He caught that skate earlier this year. So I always, if he like slicked his hair back and wore like a black turtleneck, he could be a Bond villain too.
Yeah,
like he could go either way.
But I like it. I like where your mind is at, and I love that you asked this question.
Thank you for writing a very thoughtful question. We really appreciate all of our listeners who write into us for questions, to tell us their favorite parts of games, to just celebrate things with us. We always enjoy folks reaching out, really for any purpose.
Yes.
All right, let's do our trivia, Laura, and head out of here. So you had yesterday's question while I was I won't say on the IR. I was away. I was on personal leave. Let's say that. It wasn't as serious though. What was yesterday's question and answer?
So it was about the Calgary Heritage Classic that was in 2011. I believe it was February 20th. And on the Calgary roster on that day, specifically on that day, I asked how many and who players were also at some point in their career Montreal Canadiens. And the answer was 3. So most people got Tonki, and they got Rennie Bourque, but Tom Kostopoulos was also on the Calgary roster. And I could not believe that. And I went back and I checked it on multiple sites because I truly felt that that was the time that Tom Kostopoulos was a Montreal Canadian. But the answer is 3, and only Kyle Roberts got that one.
Congratulations, Kyle Roberts. A real sicko question. I was very proud of my friend Laura.
For coming up with this.
I heard she was using hockey reference for this. A tear came to my eye. I was so excited that the nerd lived on this show while I was gone. All right, today's question. Alex Texier, French-born NHLer, scored a hat trick against the Florida Panthers. Who was the last French-born player to score a hat trick in the National Hockey League? If you have the answer, put it in the comments down below this video. Let us know any way you know how, and we'll give you a shout out on the next episode of the show. And that's going to do it for us today on Locked On Canadiens. We once again thank you for tuning in, making us your first listen of the day, for subscribing wherever you get your podcast, doing that supports us here on the show and ensures you don't miss an episode. And it makes sure, again, you get all the latest episodes directly into your feed. If you need a last-minute holiday gift or someone keeps asking you what you want, make it easy. Ask the Everydayer Club. Ad-free episodes of this show, exclusive Discord server access, and more. Subscriptions can be gifted through lockedoncanadiens.supercast.com. For those of you on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you make your second listen NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL. You can find the show Locked On Canadiens just about everywhere we're posting things, Blue Sky, Instagram, and TikTok primarily. You can email us, lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com. That's probably the best place to send your mailbag questions. We do a mailbag once a week, just as we did today. But we also love getting notes from you guys whenever you guys have something on your mind. We're always happy to read those thoughts and share ours as well. You can find me at Maybe It's Ian. You can find Laura at The Active Stick. Thank you so much for tuning in. Enjoy the game this weekend. We will see you guys on Monday.